Chof Zayin Amud Beis, right at the top of the Amud, the very first line. Amar Rabbi Yasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zar Shasira Esamarocha, non-kain who arranged the wood on the Mizbeach, on the pyre of the Mizbeach, Chayev, he's Chayev, Misa B'dei Shamayim. It's considered an avoda that was done by a Zara, non-kain, so he's Chayev Misa B'dei Shamayim. What should he do? Porka, he should disassemble it, and then rearrange it. Correct the Gemara, Maya honey. What good does that do? If he is going to disassemble and then he is going to arrange it, so he's right there. It's a zar, a non-kohen, who's arranging the maracha. Gemara says, Ella porka zar. What it means is that the zar disassembles it, and as Rishonim say, it doesn't mean dafka zar. I mean, even a zar can remove it, and v'saydra kohen. But then a kohen has to be mesader it. He therefore now has to be mesader the ma'arach. The Ritva explains that's not going to remove the einish, the punishment of Misa B'dei Shamayim from the zar for doing it. It doesn't mean how he can be mesaken the iser that he did for arranging it, but it means how can you rectify and the avoida, the maracha, that now it's kosher to do the avoida, the burning on the mizbeach. That's how you do it. Porka and a kohen now is misader it. Maskevla Rabbi Zera v'chi yesh l'cha avoda shekshera b'layla upsula b'zar. This is done at night. Now, is it so? Do we ever find an avoda that something that's kshera b'layla, that something is kosher to be done at night, it's considered to be an avoda and it's psula b'zar? And you're saying it's possible b'zar? We don't find that. A avoda is an avoda that's done in the daytime. This is done at nighttime. So therefore, that can't be the case over here. It can't be that this is considered to be therefore an avoda. So machlokes rishonim how to understand this. Does this mean that it's something that is done at night doesn't have to be done by a kohen, and therefore the Gemara's question is, and this is the way Rashi seems to be learning, is v'chiyesh avoda that something that can be done at night and it has to be done by a kohen and it's possible bizarre? But others, Rishonim learn, Vitva and the Tais Rishonim learn that not that it has, the question is, doesn't have to be done by a kohen. Not that it doesn't have to be done by, not that is it possible if it's done by a zar. The question is there a chi of misa b'dei shamayim on something that is done by night? If a zar does it, is there an einish of misa b'dei shamayim? That's the way they learn. More of a lawyer, it's not the case. Well, I'll show you things that are done at night, and nevertheless, it has to be done by a kohen. A varim upedorim, the burning of the limbs and the fat on the mizbeach. Now that can be done at night, and yet that has to be done by a kohen. A kohen has to do it. The more answer is seif avoda d'yamami. Do we consider this to be not something that's done at night, an avoda of the nighttime? It's the conclusion of the avoda of a daytime. It's a conclusion of the avoda of the hakrava that was done during the day. The burning of the evarim pedorim the conclusion of it can be done at night. Frankly, more by truma sadeshin. Well, the truma of the deshin separating the ash from the mizbeach, which has to be done by a kohen, and it can be done at night, and therefore you see that something that can be done at night still has to be done by a kohen. According to what the other Rishonim are learning, it would be presumably they'd be going according to the shitas that hold that, according to Levi, that holds that a kohen, a zar who does, a non-kohen who does it, a zar who does the Trumas Hadeshin is chayiv misa. So the more answer is tchilas avoda d'yamami, even though this is done at night, but really this is the beginning of the daytime service. It's the beginning of the avoda of the daytime, so it's considered to be an avoda of the daytime, not the avoda of nighttime. Tchilas avoda d'yamami. The Amar Rabbi Yasi Amar Rabbi Yochanan kiddush yadav l'Trumas Hadeshin. The kohen, he washed his hands and feet. He's mekadosh yadav from the kiyur for the purpose of the Trumas Hadeshin. Now, even though this is done before Alois HaShachar, and normally, then things that after Alois HaShachar is considered to be what's done before and what's done after is considered to be there's a separation, and he has to be mekadosh his hands again, but over here we say that no, lemochar ein tzarach lekadosh. The next day he does not have to be mekadosh shekvar kiddush mitchilas avoda, because the Trumas Odeshen is considered the beginning of the daytime avoda. He was already mekadosh his hands for that avoda, so it's not required again. So you see, the Trumas Odeshen is considered to be the beginning of the next day's avoda. So, however, we don't find that something which is truly an avodas laila, that is also with a coin, or that a zar would be chayiv misa. So the Gemara says vela kasha. So therefore, well, then we do have a kasha. How can Rav Yochanan say that a zar who arranged the wood on the mizbeach is chayiv misa? So Gemara says enechanami. It's not what he meant. Ella ki itmar hachi itmar. What he meant to say was as follows. Amar Rabbi Yasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zar Shesira Shnei Gzirei Eitzim. When he arranged the 2 blocks of wood on the mizbeach on the pyre, chayiv. He's chayiv hoil of avodas yomi. That is considered to be an avodas yom. That is done in the daytime. The pasuk says, "Ubir la kain eitzim b'bayker b'bayker." It's done in the daytime. So that is avodah of the daytime. There he says, if it's a Masada, the Shnei Gzirei Eitzim, it's an avodas yom. As Zar does it, he's chayiv misa. Maskav lo rov, if that's the case, and it's considered a daytime avoda, and it's considered a full-fledged avoda, as Zar's chayiv mitzvah, tiboya payas. Why isn't there a girl for it? Then it's choshev, it should have a separate payas, a separate girl. Where answers the mitah hadasaya, he forgot that what it said in the brisa, Misha zocha b'trumas odeshen, and the kain that zeichan the girl to do the trumas odeshen, zocha b'sidur marocha, he's also zeicha with the arrangement of the marocha. Ubesidur shnei gzirei eitzim, and the siddur of the 2 gzirei eitzim. So therefore, it was given to the one that was the one that was zeicha to the trumas odeshen. So he is then also zeicha with that. So therefore, it is something that is given out with a girl. So l'meimra, affect the more l'meimra the avodas yom avodah payas. You mean to say that an avodas yom, an avodah that's in the daytime, requires a payas, a girl, avodas laila loy by a payas, but something that which is in nighttime, there's no payas. I v'harei evorm u'pedorim. What about the burning of the limbs and the fats on the mizbeach? And it had a payas, so even though it was done by night, there was a girl. Or answer Seif Avodah the Amami, like we said before, it's the end of the daytime of Avodah. The Gemara of Arei Trumas Odeshen. What about the Trumas Odeshen? It was done by a girl by the payas, and it was done at night. Gemara answers Mishum Maisa Shahaya. The reason that there was a girl over there was because of the Maisa Shahaya, because there was a Maisa. And initially they did not have a girl, they did it by way of a race, and they came to a sakana. So because of the sakana, they instituted a girl. But initially it did not have a girl. Taisus points out that we could have answered, like we said before, that it's a tchilas avodah diyamama. But we're saying this l'Rav Chadamilsa, that even if you don't say that it's a tchilas avodah diyamama, still you have another teretz. So l'meimra the avodas yom u'shazar chayiv l'am misa boy payas. Mean to say it's not of something which is avoided done in the daytime, and then also that it has a chashivas. That chashivas out of a zara doesn't is chayiv misa b'dei shemaim. That's where we have a girl. That's where we have a payas. Ein zara chayiv l'am misa loy boy payas. But if the zar would not be chayiv misa, we would not institute a payas. V'harei shchita. You see shchita, that even though it's kosher with a zar, with a non-kohen, and nevertheless we do it with a girl, so awarded with a girl. Shiny shchita. Shchita is different. The tchilas avodah, because that is the beginning of the avodah. So therefore, even though it is kosher with a zar, the shchita can be done by a non-kohen. It's kosher with a zar, and we're saying generally the rule is that something that's done dafka in the daytime and needs a kohen, that's where we have a payas. But the shchita has a special significance because that is the beginning of the avodah, the beginning of the entire avodah. Omer Marzutra Vitema Ravashi Vahanan Loitanan Hachi said, but we did not learn that way. We learned something different from the Mishnah, because when the Mishnah says Vahanan Loitanan Hachi, because Omer Lahem Hamuna, the administrator, the Muna said to the Kahanim to go out and see imigias man hashchita, and see that it's morning if the time for shchita has arrived. So they wanted to make sure to ensure that the zman of the shchita has arrived. But it doesn't say the time of the 2 blocks of wood. Therefore, doesn't that show you, not like we're saying, doesn't that show you different from what we're saying, that the shnei gzira eitzim doesn't have to be done dafka in the daytime. They can be performed even at night. Doesn't that show you that that's the case? Because why wouldn't he say, go to see if the time has come for the Shnei Gzira Eitzim? And it should say that the Shed can see if the time for the Shnei Gzira Eitzim has arrived, because in fact the Shnei Gzira Eitzim is placed before the Shechita. So that should be the one that they're marked on first, that to see if the time for that has arrived. So apparently that shows you that they're not particular to see that it is daybreak, that it's yaim, that it's daytime, in order to do the Shnei Gzira Eitzim. Moran says, Hach, the less lektakata katan. The shchita, if it's done in the wrong time, if it's done at night, there's no takana. It can't be rectified, so it is possible. So it doesn't mention that. But Hach, the lektakata lekatai. But the Shnei Gzira Eitzim, there's no takana for that. You can rectify that. If they put it on at the wrong time, remove it, and then put it on at the right time. So therefore, they weren't as particular about it. But the shchita, if it's done at nighttime, it's possible, so that's why they were particular about it. So we're saying, in summary, in conclusion, we're saying that the Shnei Gzira Eitzim has to be done in the daytime. The shchita has to be done in the daytime. And we say the Trumas Hadeshen, we had 2 versions of it. We had one version that even though it's done in the nighttime, but it's Tchilas Aveda Yomama, and that's why it has a pious meaning. And we're saying that the rule is that for a pious, it has to be something that is an Aveda, that is Aveda Yomama, and Aveda Yomama, and therefore, and also it is done by a kohen, can't be done by a zar. That's where we have a pious. The Trumas Hadeshen, we have a pious. Why is that so? So one version is that we consider it to be an avodah d'yamama. We consider it to be an avodah of the daytime because it's a tchilas avodah d'yamama. Now the version is mishum ma'aseh shahaya, because of the ma'aseh shahaya. And the question arises, the Rishonim asked the question that we're saying that the Siddur Ma'arocha could be done at night. And we don't consider the Siddur Ma'arocha to be tchilas avodah d'yamama. Well, why is that so? If we say that the Trumas Hadeshen is considered to be the Tchilas Aveda Yomama, the Siddur Ma'arocha occurs after that, so that certainly should be considered to be Tchilas Aveda Yomama. Why don't we say that it's the beginning of the daytime service, and why do we say that it's considered a nighttime service? The Ritva answer is because sometimes that was done at nighttime, sometimes it was done earlier. If the fire from the Meracha went out, they would have to masader it and light a new fire. So therefore, sometimes it was done earlier, and it was therefore considered not the beginning of the next day's Avodah. It was considered the conclusion of the previous day, a conclusion of what was done at night, what was done previously at night, the burning of the Varma Pedarim, and therefore it's not considered Tchilas Aveda Yom because it's not necessarily done at the time of the beginning of and done for the next day's Avodah.